Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abbey, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abbey podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dear Abbey. I'm your host. My name is Abby. Welcome back to our little corner of the internet. We are going to talk about listening to people, and I'll talk about what I mean by that, and also we'll do a Dear Abbey. But before I go any further, one, I hope everyone is doing great. I hope you are doing fantastic on whatever day you're listening. It was a beautiful Easter weekend. Beautiful Easter weekend. I just spent it with my family, went to good old church, and just felt happy and hopeful and joyful. So it was an amazing day. I hope you guys had a good Easter and got to celebrate it with your loved ones or whatever your traditions are. If you don't have any, that's cool too. Second thing I was going to say before moving on is I am married, and I promise my husband is real, and we actually got married. And I also said that I'd have him on, but we just haven't been able to figure a time out because it's just been hard to sit down and schedule something out, which is weird, but I will have him on eventually, okay? But I apologize for leading you on, and I'm excited for when he does. It'll be a fun episode. A couple quick life updates before we get into the meat of today's episode. As I always say, is as well as Easter being this past weekend, it also was my older sister's 30th birthday. I only have one sister. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. She is right above me in the chain of siblings in the hierarchy. She is my master, basically. And then hers is my older brother, and so on and so forth. And I am the master / captain to my little brothers, as it goes. You know how it is. She is my only sister. She is my only full sister. I have sister-in-laws now, and that's amazing, but she's my only sister. Grew up, we shared a room. We had 2 beds that we would push together, and there's a little crack, and Chelsea would get mad at me when I would sleep in the crack because it was too close to where she was sleeping. We grew up playing Polly Pockets, getting those dressed up. We grew up playing Barbies. We grew up having our dad act like he was a server and we were princesses, dressing in our old dance costumes that my mom would save for us in the garage in a box. We would giggle late at night, talking, having fun, being little girls. We would play mermaids. We would play house. We did all of those little girly things together, me and her. And in a house full of boys, it was nice to have a sister and a mom. I am forever grateful that I have a sister and that she is who she is. She has a podcast that is very successful, and a lot of people get to see how funny she is. A lot of people get to see how kind she is, how understanding she is, non-judgmental she is, and how good of a mother she is, and how good of an entertainer she is. I've been able to see that my whole life growing up. Sometimes we didn't have the best relationship and we would fight over clothes in high school. There was a couple years where we fought more than we got along, but we always loved each other, and it was my fault. I just wouldn't ask. I don't know why I wouldn't. I just wouldn't ask. I was scared she was going to say no, so I didn't even want to ask, even though she'd always say yes. It's a weird little sister thing, but she's always been my best friend, and that is my tribute to my sister for her 30th. Happy birthday. I love you. And you looked beautiful all weekend. And that's the only time I'll say that. So for her birthday, we went outside of San Diego somewhere in a small mining town, and we rode horses, which was something I had not done in a long time. I felt like we were reconnecting to our roots, half of our family's roots, who were cattle ranchers. So we grew up having my mom grew up riding horses all the time. My grandpa had horses. We rode them when we were really little, but I barely remember. So it's been a long time. I had a friend in high school who did competitions, and so we would ride her horses every once in a while. But it's, again, been a very, very long time since I've gone on the horse. I was nervous because I think horses can get scared easily. At least that's what I gather. And also if you don't kind of show that you're the boss, just like other animals, like a dog even, they will misbehave. And I did not want that happening because they're too big and strong. So you just want to have the right amount of assertiveness without being like a bully, but also being like, okay, don't stop and eat the grass every 5 seconds, okay? And also don't get too close behind the horse in front of you or they might kick you, and that will not be good for either of us. Again, I was pretty scared, pretty nervous. Try to get my energy right, if that makes sense, which maybe is the worst thing to do. I have no idea. We get there, we get a little waiver thing that we signed, of course, and then we were ready to be paired up with our horses, and the girl that was running the stables was really sweet. She was really nice. She said she was going to catch a vibe and then pair us up with the horses. Chelsea got like the sweet polka dotted black and white, or like dark brown and white horse, and she was an older horse, very sweet, had like the cutest energy, and also was just really lovey-dovey. They paired up JC, Danny, and then me last, and she gave me a horse named Toro. And Toro had different energy, and I couldn't figure out why. And my horse was pretty freaking big. The other horses were not small, but they weren't like stallions. But my horse is pretty freaking big. I kind of got guy energy a little bit. And then a couple minutes later, right when we were starting to get on the horses and she was helping us get on and instructing us, she did tell me that it was the only boy horse other than the guide's horse. So I got the big boy. And he was a troublemaker at first, but we got along just great. And he was a good boy. Right before I was about to get on, he just peed a lot of pee. I forget how much pee comes out of a horse. And just right before. And then I got on, and then at least he was refreshed, didn't have the urge to pee the whole time. So we're all on our horses. It's a pretty foggy day, and it was pretty chilly. But right when we're all on our horses, it got like so windy and cold and freezing. So we almost turned back at the beginning, but it wasn't my birthday. It was for Chelsea's birthday. So none of us said anything, even though later we all brought up the fact that we wanted to quit immediately because it was too cold and our hands were freezing. But we didn't want to say anything unless Chelsea did because it was her birthday wish to go to ride horses. So we toughened it out. And then our guide told us to do to put our hands under the saddle cushion so that way the horse can warm us up because they're super warm. And at first I thought there's no way that this thing is going to actually warm up my hand. Like it's going to be kind of warm, but it's not going to actually help me be comfortable on the ride. I'll just be miserable. The second I put my hand in the cushion, my hands were instantly warm. There was like all of the frostbite feeling or where you can't bend your fingers all gone immediately. It was like a furnace in there. It felt so good. So thank you, Toro, for keeping my hands warm and being a good boy. So the tour that we did was just up and down these two little mountains. It was a slow walk and up and down. It got a little bit rainy, a little bit slippery, which was kind of scary, but we were safe. And it was like the most beautiful, enchanting horseback riding I've ever done. It was so foggy. Where we were walking had these beautiful red, white, pink, some yellow blossoms on the trees. I don't know what kind of trees they were, but they were blossoming with flowers, cherry blossoms almost. So it literally felt like we were princesses trying to get to this enchanted castle in the middle of the woods. So there was a bit of spooky vibes at first, but then it was like just enchanted, beautiful. And we are warmer now that the horses were warming up our hands. So yeah, it's always intimidating getting on a horse, but then once you're on there for a little bit, you're like, okay, I trust the horse trusts me, I think, and now we're like working as a team. We kind of have each other's vibes, and the nerves go down and you feel more settled, and then you're just having fun. Near the end, we were saying how I kind of wanted to run. Like Chelsea wanted to literally take the horse and by herself, which not necessarily trained yet to do so, but it would be so fun to be able to just gallop with the horse because you just feel free and you feel so powerful on a horse because they're just beautiful, powerful, majestic creatures. Which reminds me of a reel that I saw. I hate to do this, but a reel that I saw the other day where basically it was just talking about how badly does it hurt horses' feelings when they hear us say dog is man's best friend, even though we've ridden on horses for battle countless times. Like they have sacrificed their lives for us so many times in so many battles throughout history. They're just our go-to thing to ride into war. Used to be, at least. Dogs weren't like that. So anyways, all in all, it was a beautiful weekend. Happy I got to celebrate her birthday. Had a good Easter. So the topic of today's episode, like I said, is listening. But specifically, if you want to know someone or if you want to understand someone more, just listen. Which sounds so simple, but it can be so hard sometimes if you have your guard up. So you're constantly thinking of what to say back. So you're not listening when you're doing that. You're not listening. It can be hard to listen if you're someone who has more anxiety when you're in a social situation. So instead of listening to them, you're thinking of what you're going to say next as well. Maybe not in like a defensive way, just in a, okay, like what should I ask next? What do you say in this situation if you're overthinking, which makes you not listen. And I wanted to talk in both a relationship situation, like a romantic relationship or a familial relation or a family relationship, whatever, and how you can actually listen to understand somebody. And then also just strangers. And if you have a little bit more of social anxiety and how it's really easy to start to have conversations when you really listen to what people like. The reason I thought of this was because I was thinking of what I wanted to get Chelsea for her birthday. I like to make more crafty gifts or make stuff for people's birthday. And that's because I don't really have a bunch of money I can just spend on a lot of gifts. But also I like to show people I love them with my time, like my energy and my time and my focus. So some people are great gift givers, and one isn't better than the other, but for me, that's how I feel like I can contribute to something more, is if I'm sacrificing time and energy and work on somebody else, like an acts of service type of a thing. So I was thinking of what I could make her, do for her, and it just got me into the mode of gift giving and thinking, how do you get someone a really good gift? I just had to sit down and really think about what she says, what she talks about. What does she bring up a lot? If we're in the car and talking about something, what does she then start to talk about? What's something that she changes the subject into? Like, you can see people's interests by what they talk about, obviously. When you're someone that can be in your head a lot, it sounds like a selfish thing that, like, duh, obviously, but sometimes it's just kind of difficult and you don't even realize that you're maybe not listening to people. And it's not malicious. You have no bad intent. In fact, the reason you're probably overthinking is because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or you're trying to help yourself because you don't want to get hurt again. And so you're trying to, like, defend. And yeah, obviously, if you're defending, you're not really listening. And if you're overthinking, you're not really listening. So if you tend to overthink or it's hard to be present for you, then we can have a hard time listening to what other people are actually saying. It's also easy to listen to what someone is saying and immediately interpret it into your own, what you think they're saying, if that makes sense. Sometimes we assume things. Sometimes we as in everyone, people can assume things from what people say instead of more so inquiring further. Like if someone says something that sounds a little bit wonky or that you could maybe take it a negative way, but you're not sure, it can be tempting to just take it in a negative way and kind of to defend yourself, as in like, well, you better not have meant this by saying that. And instead you can ask a follow-up question. And like, to me, it sounds like you're saying that you don't care about this because you said this and this, but like, I don't think that's actually what you're saying, but I don't really know. Can you explain further what you meant by this? And those are just, I feel like those are active listening skills, to ask follow-up questions, to clarify so that way you're actually listening to understand instead of listening to point out something wrong that they said or something that you don't agree with. Anyways, I went a little bit farther. So along those lines, so thinking about what to get Chelsea, I was thinking of, what she talks about a lot, and I figured out what I wanted to get her for a gift. And I bought a garden apron because she loves her flower garden. She's wanting to garden more. And she talks about it. She posts about it a lot too. I didn't see her. I don't think she had an apron. At least I haven't seen her wear it. Or she would probably have shown me if she got a cute apron or something. So I got her like an apron on Etsy. And then I embroidered like her initials, her kids, her husband. I just drew cute, like I drew a house with fences and a little garden, and I did a little flower garden in this area and a little stem here, and just like did cute little designs on it. Basically spent a lot of time on it, honestly, and it just got me into thinking, how often am I not listening to people? Like, it just made me stop and think about how good am I at actually listening to my husband. Is probably the number one person, just because I'm with him more than anyone else. And so when you have bad behaviors, they're the ones that are going to be receiving it most of the time, because odds are if you're with them 90% of the time and you're grumpy 10% of the time, they're most likely to be the ones on the receiving end of that. So I watched how I listened for like the next couple of days, and I realized how bad, really, it's sad, but I realized how bad I was at really listening to him sometimes. Like, I'm good at listening. I can hear, I can listen, I can understand the gist of what he's saying. But when it comes to something that maybe we don't agree on, when it comes to something maybe that can spark a disagreement or an argument or something, that's when I stop listening. It's like that's when my immediate natural response is to stop listening to him. It's like, no, you don't deserve for me to listen to you anymore. That's where my brain goes. Like, I've noticed that that's almost an immediate thing, and that's totally shutting him out. That's totally not okay. And I don't know how obvious it is for him, but I'm sure it is, because when someone's not like listening and they're not like understanding, it's frustrating, and you feel like you're talking to a wall. It's not like I did this all the time. Just in a couple of days, there was a couple of times where I realized instead of listening to him, I'm like, my mind is going a million miles per hour thinking of like what he could have meant by that, versus just I could have asked him, or I could have maybe just have listened to what he kept saying, instead of stopping and then in my head trying to like think while he's still talking or something. It's so weird because it can feel so wrong sometimes to listen to somebody who maybe actually did say something hurtful, or that did something hurtful, and it's like, I don't want to listen to you. Like, I don't want to listen to you sometimes. That's how it can feel, and it doesn't feel fair. Like, they get to speak when maybe you don't feel like you're being heard either. But something I'm trying to practice is to see just what happens if I stop assuming I know everything, and to stop assuming you know what everyone is saying around you all the time, and that you totally understand, and that you're right, they're wrong type of a thing. I think it's just a healthy relationship thing to practice, whether it's romantic or anything else, to remind yourself to stop and really, really listen during a discussion or a disagreement or an argument or whatever. And notice how maybe you have a lot of resistance to actually listening to them, and just notice that and recognize, okay, if we're like fighting a lot about this thing, do we really actually listen to each other? Do we feel like we're working together on this? Does it feel like I'm really listening to them? Do I actually show them that I care about their side of it? And it also applies to your partner or your loved one, with just listening to what they like. Like, if you feel like you don't know what they like, you don't know what to get them as a gift, you don't know what they would enjoy if you wanted to do like a vacation, or I don't know, a surprise, like, just listen to what somebody talks about. Listen to what they bring up all the time. Obviously, that means that they're thinking about that a lot, and that's occupying a lot of their mind. So it's not like anywhere close to Christmas, but I just feel like I need to remember this for Christmas because I'm pretty good at listening. Like, it's not like I'm bad at listening. I really do listen to people, I promise. It's just sometimes in some situations, it's like my brain flips a switch type of a thing. And it's really hard for me to like not, like my brain just feels louder than what the other person is saying. It literally feels like my brain is louder than what the person in front of me is saying. So that's when it's hard for me to listen to them. So there's not bad intent or anything like that. Again, I think most people who struggle with this, it's the same thing. But it is helpful to maybe start to notice that and just notice that that is actually what's happening. And maybe you can say something like, okay, I want to like listen and have a conversation or whatever, but I think I just need my brain to go back down to normalcy, and then we can further discuss. Time really can heal all. Time really does make a huge difference, especially if you have big emotions, because you do need those sometimes to surface and to be neutral before you can have an actual productive conversation. Okay, so then also just in regards to listening to strangers, if you have more anxiety like me in social situations, sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. It really just depends on my confidence that day very heavily. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I can do this. This is easy for me to like just talk. It's like not a big deal. Then sometimes it's like I'm obsessing over everything I'm saying. I'm like, why'd you do that? That was so stupid. You cut them off. You talked too early. You should have, now you're being rude, whatever. If you're meeting someone new, or if you're getting to know somebody, you're trying to make a new friend, or you're on a date, you're kind of starting to date someone, you're going to see someone. If you're just anxious of like the conversation flowing, just the best advice ever given to me was just the more you really listen to them, the more you will think of questions, the more you will think of how to reply, versus if you're only thinking about how you're going to reply the whole time they're talking, it's going to be a choppy conversation. And they're also probably not going to feel super listened to because you're really not listening to them. But if you're like cool, calm, collected, listening, respond with a question because you know what they said, that'll go a lot smoother. But sometimes you won't think of something, and that's okay too. Yeah, I just feel like it feels really good on the receiving end when somebody listens. It is a skill that you have to learn sometimes if it's not a natural thing for you to like listen actively. I have to remind myself how good it feels when someone's really listening to you, and there's such a huge difference on how much your heart like opens and how much you feel safe in being A, yourself, and B, you wanting to connect back with that person. So going back to a relationship or with whoever, even if it doesn't feel like someone's listening to you, I would stop and think if you're trying to listen to them and then try that. Not even looking for a way to fix whatever's happening, but I think to look for a way to try something different. So let's let my guard down. Let me listen to what they're really saying. And then let's see what happens. And a lot of the times, sometimes it doesn't really work quickly and it doesn't really work that fast. We can be more complicated sometimes, but sometimes when you do that and you really listen to someone, then their walls sometimes come down and they're more likely to acknowledge like, yeah, I did hurt you and I'm now realizing what I did and that is hurtful. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again. Or sometimes that's just when they feel like this battle that they're having in their head trying to get you to listen to something because they feel unloved in some way, which is the same thing that's happening in you. Like you're also battling with something you're trying to get them to understand. Sometimes it just takes one of you to break that down for a second and be kind of humble and accept defeat in a way. But it's not accepting defeat. It's just accepting like, yeah, I probably am not listening to you and I am probably hurting your feelings. And I don't want to do that, but that's what I'm doing. And I think admitting that and then actually really listening to what they're saying helps them do the same and just brings you back to connection. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to talk about with listening and listening to what people say, because what you want to know about someone, you can listen and they will tell you what you need to know about someone, whether it's good or bad. Honestly, this is all positive, but sometimes if you really listen to how people talk and what they say, what they keep bringing up, it can kind of warn you if maybe somebody's not the best person to have in your ear all the time, because what some people keep repeating and saying is it might get stuck in your head, or you just might be surrounded by people who are just making you feel bad about yourself, or they're putting kind of toxic ideas in your head and stuff like that. So either way, listen to people. They will tell you everything they will tell you everything that you need to know about somebody if you just listen. Okay, so let's do a Dear Abby and then we will end today's episode. Hi, Abby. I feel like there are not many people I can ask for advice on this topic because not many people have been in a similar situation, so I am really hoping you're able to give some advice here. I was engaged to someone before and am now dating my best friend of multiple years. He just told me he loves me and I feel like I'm also at that point, but I'm scared to be vulnerable again and tell him the same. I know a lot of my fears are somewhat irrational because this guy would never do or treat me how the last guy did. He treats me like a queen, honestly. But I still get nervous about getting closer to him in every way and that something could change his mind about me. How do you suggest going about being more vulnerable emotionally and physically with a new partner after having been completely blindsided by a partner you thought you could trust completely before? I could see myself marrying this guy and going to the temple with him, but sometimes I feel like I carry a lot of baggage and get scared because of that it could be all over in 1 second. I'm going to sit with this for a second. Let this digest. Also, FYI, I'm guessing going to the temple means like marrying him, getting sealed to him, because in the Church of Jesus Christ, it's just a way of, instead of it being just we're married in this life and then when you die it's over. We just believe you get sealed like forever, and that's like there's more to life after this life. And so when you get married in the temple, it's just saying that. And for someone who believes in God and believes that this is something that God wants you to do and you and your husband should do, it's a big deal for people of faith to do this. It's a big decision. So your question was specifically, how do you suggest going about being more vulnerable emotionally and physically with a new partner after being blindsided? There's no perfect way to do this, and there's no map that's perfectly laid out on how to mend that type of a broken heart, or there's not a structured step-by-step thing that is going to work to get you to be able to be vulnerable. Not that there's not ways, and there is like steps and there's things you can do, but I just want to preface by saying it's going to be messy. And life is just complicated sometimes and messy, and you're dealing with two very complex people who come together. They have their baggage too. So I know you have emotional baggage that you would call it, but so do they. I truly believe everybody has their own emotional baggage. And so I think a marriage is just helping them carry the suitcase, basically. And maybe throwing away stuff in the suitcase, and then so it gets lighter, so it's easier to carry. So with that being said, I think one thing is to remember that you've already experienced heartbreak and you made it out alive, and you are still here and you're okay, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like you're okay, and it's not like you're stronger because of it, because sometimes I don't feel stronger because of it, even though sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Again, that's part of the messiness. It's like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger sometimes, but sometimes no, it doesn't, and it just makes you sad and hard to love again. But I think if you try to have a more deep connection with yourself regarding the fact that if someone does hurt me, I'm going to be there for myself no matter what. And if you are someone of faith, like you have someone that's there for you no matter what as well. But for yourself, like you can have a good relationship with yourself to understand and to set a foundation. Like if something were to happen again, I am going to choose myself, and I'm going to still have a beautiful, wonderful life, and just have that in the back of your head always. And that's just to have this part of you, this cup kind of filled before you even start to try to be vulnerable. That way you have a confidence to you when you are vulnerable, and you feel closer to yourself and more connected to yourself, which will help you connect with your partner. So I think that's a huge important part. At least it was for me. It's also important to remind yourself that there are so many successful love stories, and that kind of love really does exist. And if you already feel like you really trust this guy and you know him, you know he would never do that. I think sometimes we try to convince ourselves so often, and that's like all we think about kind of is like, are they going to cheat? Are they not going to cheat? Are they going to blindside me? Are they not? And instead of like being in the relationship and being present with them, and we get stuck in this like monitoring of the relationship versus like enjoying the relationship, which I sometimes still find myself doing that. And I have to kind of let go of that and go back to a healthier way of experiencing my relationship. I think one way that you can physically be more vulnerable is just letting yourself be really hugged and held, and trusting that in their heart, if they're saying this, and in their head, if they're saying this, that they want to hold you, they want to support you, they want to comfort you. I'm sure he wants to, and I'm sure he's expressed that he loves you or whatever. I don't know where you're at in the stage of the relationship, and so when he does do those things, and he does hold you or hug you or support you or give you affirmation, he's not like some robot that's just saying these things. He's like a real sweet boy that really wants to make you happy, and that really wants you to feel safe in his arms, and he cares about that. It's possible for men to really care about your feelings, even if they don't understand. Sometimes we can be like, okay, well, they don't understand, and they're saying just fix this, so they don't care. It's like they don't understand yet, and guys eventually learn how to deal with that part of women, but they do care, and they show it in their own ways. So in those moments, just if your brain is going crazy, that's okay. Don't like get mad at yourself or be like, of course, like I'm never going to be able to love again. I'm never going to be able to trust him, because I feel like that further escalates the anxiety or the disconnect. And instead be like, it's normal that I'm feeling this way, but I'm going to like consciously just choose to let go of trying to solve if he's going to hurt me or not, and just trust and believe like he's not going to, and that's how I'm moving forward, and that's how I'm going to love him, that's how I'm going to speak to him, listen to him, be with him, is that he's not going to hurt me. Some might call that foolish, but if this is someone that's shown you that they're trustworthy, this is someone that you're committed to, that you're serious about, it's like, I don't know what other mindset you would want to have going into a relationship. Even though, yes, people do cheat. Yes, there are things that happen, but it's not helpful to go into a relationship assuming that's what's going to happen. So I think just be really kind and gentle with yourself as you experience the anxiety or, the overthinking or whatever it is, and redirect that into something that will help change and shape your relationship into something deeper. It can be hard to emotionally let somebody in, but I would just say be honest. Like, be very honest, and you don't have to tell every feeling that you ever have honest. Sometimes I'll just tell my husband, like, I love you, but my brain is going crazy. I feel like so disconnected from myself. I just need you to like hold me for a second until I can relax. Like, and that's just what I need right now. And it can be helpful just to practice that, which sounds silly, but it is helpful for me to just practice that. I think the last thing I'll say is, as frustrating as it can be to experience heartbreak and then getting into a new relationship and trying to navigate your feelings with that and your fears and all of those fun things, that path, when you get curious about that and you move towards that, that's where you can get deeper in your relationship and you can fall more in love with your partner. And there is so much more in your heart that can be released and open so that you can receive more in your relationship. You can receive more love from your partner, from God, if you are like a woman of faith. It can be a long journey. And again, it can be messy, but I think really, truly respecting yourself, loving yourself will help you fill your own cup. And then the more that you really believe and change your belief to accept that a man can treat you very right, and they are not perfect, but he loves you and he cares about your heart. He cares about you. And I think just part of your work right now is learning to be loved and learning to let that in. That's a lot easier said than done. I think just give your nervous system time, patience, and practice, as well as your soul, like your spirit and your heart. It also deserves a little bit of a rejuvenation or a bit of patience, in that it might feel like you can't love, like you it's too hard for you to do that right now, and fair enough. And sometimes your heart, like your spirit, needs to be rejuvenated, and you need to be patient with your heart as well, that it's okay that it might take a while. Well, I hope any of that was helpful. And to revert back to the whole topic of today's episode about listening, is really trust him and listen to when he says something. Like, really listen and believe that's what he means. Okay, well, that is all for today's episode, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast, you can leave a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can also like, subscribe, or comment on YouTube. I post my podcast on YouTube every week, as well as on Spotify and Apple. And if you want to hear me speak about something in particular, you can send me a direct message on Instagram at Dear Abbey. You can also leave a Dear Abbey question for me, or you can you can mail. Oh my gosh, you can call or leave a voicemail at the number in the description below for a chance to have your question answered and also to be on the next episode. I don't know why I said a chance. It's not like it's like, wow, I'm on the episode, but okay. Have a good weekend. Bye. Love you.
우회전 taking a ride to journey 눈치 보면서 들어가 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들 시간만 지나